Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast, where we are passionate about developing a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. I'm your host, Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify. Every week, we have the opportunity to bring on authors, speakers, coaches, leaders of nonprofits, CEOs, all who are passionate about putting God back in business as well. And as I tell you, it's no different this week. Ladies and gentlemen, there are certain people that you meet where when you talk to them for the first time, it's like you've known them for many years, like their family, already a close friend. And our guest today is very much like that. She and I met out at a faith and work event not too long ago at the time of this recording, and it's just we're gonna have to have more conversations, and I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead out on a limb and say we're gonna preemptively invite her back for a second session because there's just not enough time. She knows this. There's just not enough time. We had an impactful 10 to 15 minute conversation, and God has definitely moved very powerfully within uh, within her life. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fortified Life podcast. Kasha Hatcher. Folks, just to give you an idea of her impact, I mean, she is involved in leadership strategy, organizational impact. She's a lifelong learner, and you're going to learn a lot in this interview. She helps high performing women leaders and purpose driven organizations shorten their fight time, lead lighter, scale smarter, build trust, clarity, and connection for lasting impact. Kasha, how are you doing today? I don't even know if that does full justice.
Oh my gosh, Jason, you are such a treasure, and it is an absolute honor to get the opportunity to continue our conversation and to be here. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, Kasha, here's what I know. Most of the people that I've come in contact with that work with groups, coaching, and I love just the certain words. So high performing women leaders. When I hear that, that also means that God has taken you on a certain journey because I've not met and high impact woman that has not come through some things. And we know that you didn't just wake up in 2025 doing what you're doing today. So give us a little snapshot of your professional journey and how you got to what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So I am very open. People usually think I'm younger than I am. I'm 45 and I've been doing this work for 20 years. And my professional journey for the most of my career has been in international development. And I knew what I wanted to do since I was 15. When I was
Mm.
15, I had the incredible opportunity in high school to intern at the Mission of Sudan in New York City. And so basically, the UN is where the embassy was based in 1998. And I got a chance to intern there. And from that point on, having been able to go to the UN and witness it, I was like, I want to work for the UN someday. And when I was in my early 20s, I did. I lived in Sudan for a year and I worked for the UN, and I got a chance to really see some powerful things and be a part of some really incredible work. And so through my career, it's really been dropping into countries where USAID and state and DoD have been present and helping to facilitate strategy for those groups. So helping to promote winning the hearts and minds in some rough places and helping folks to really say, okay, what is it that we want to accomplish here over the next 5 years? How do we accomplish that? What's our roadmap? What's our theory of how things will change? It's almost like if you think of the back of the cereal box and X marks the spot and there's like that dotted line. It's okay, what is our X and what are the milestones along the way? But then also
Mm,
helping them to set up the processes and systems to say, okay, well, let's erase that line and redraw it here because we need to pivot. How do we do this in an agile way? And so
mm,
that's really where my passion for work and life has really come from is how do we have an impact as organizations and companies and people, and how do we do it with people at the center of it? And it's been such an honor and privilege to have my career be in that space
mm,
for the last 20 years. And then, as many know, in the beginning of this year, in early February, some things shifted and USAID was dismantled and is no more. And the international development community really and profession will never be the same. And so
mm,
we sort of lost our industry as a community. And at that point, I just sat back and I was like, okay, how can I continue to do this meaningful work? And how can I help other companies and organizations do meaningful work? So it's still the same purpose, it just looks a little bit different. And whether you're in the middle of Afghanistan working with an organization in USAID, or whether you're working with a CEO in a boardroom, there are some real core commonalities and
mm,
similarities. So I became an executive coach. I got certified about 4 years ago. So that was a part of my journey. I was doing it informally for many years, and then I
mhm.
oh, I could actually get certified in this and have that nice little title behind my name. Sure, let's go for it. Like a lot of people need that title to feel like they can trust you. I'm like, I'm down, I can do it. So I added that to my toolbox, and yeah, and also part of my journey has been okay, so there's the organizations and then there's the people, and how do you help build cultures
Mm,
sustain and help organizations thrive? Or how do you help individuals that I coach build the village and the community that will help them to thrive? So that's been a big part of the my journey. It's almost
mm.
like, what are the things that have helped me and how do I now help others do it? And what are the things that have helped my clients and how do I keep passing that along?
My goodness. Kasha, there's so much in there. She said a big one is working, like you said, the backdrop of going into different countries. When you think about where you're at today, how does that shape how you interact with people? Because out here in the West and the U.S., we have a certain, we have vernacular, we have slang, even on the business side, we have different terminology. But when you go in to another country, how have you kind of taken a step back and learned from and being so well traveled? How has it made you a better communicator with people?
Yeah. So I will say humility,
Mm,
staying in learning mode always, and being curious about people's stories and the context.
hmm
Because if you think about, I'll use Sudan as an example, my first time there was around 2007, and the country had been through 20 years of war.
Wow.
And South Sudan was in the process of becoming their own country. They now are. And it was the biggest privilege and honor of my life to have been there to see it become its own country. Like how many people get to experience that? But part of that was also understanding that there's so many organizations and companies that went in
hmm
and they hired people to do jobs. And when the technical skills weren't there, or when people weren't learning quickly enough, they would just fire people.
mm
Now, if you do this in a country that's been through 20 years of war, that person who you fired can and has come back and shot you in the head. There's
Wow.
a whole different context that you are dealing with where it is life or death.
Hmm.
And what was so powerful for me was even just how I speak now is different. So I'm an Eastern European New Yorker. And the later it gets, the more the New York accent comes out. And if like, you may even hear some Eastern European in there, right? But going into places, how am I speaking? And am I speaking in such a way where people can understand me, even if they speak English? How we speak English, even from state to state, differs, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of this. I cannot understand when my brother-in-law speaks at all.
Mm.
He is from South Carolina, but he speaks a different English, and I have a hard time, and my husband often has to translate. It's things like respecting other people's cultures. So there are places
Mm.
where men won't shake my hand because I am a woman, and I
Hmm.
respect that, and that's okay. That is part of that culture. Not pushing what I experience and what my expectations may be onto somebody else. Being really cognizant of the fact that if I am a white woman from the West in some of these places, I am going to be seen a certain way. And how do I cultivate an environment where people will lend their voice and they will give their honest opinions and because they are the holders of all the wisdom.
Hmm.
I am just a guide or a facilitator.
Wow.
That's often the case whether you're whether I'm coaching an amazing woman leader or whether I'm in these contexts, it's understanding I am just the guide. I get to be a part of your journey. And there's some tools that I have to help along the way, but you are the holders of the wisdom where the journey goes. You know better. And in these places, you partner and you co-design solutions because it's the people that know it, not us.
I think, Kasha, when I think about even in scripture, the keystone trait that you see mentioned is humility. And so you relating that in a marketplace context is very helpful because, like you said, you going into another country and another culture, and well, I do it this way, and they say, oh, time out, here we do it this way. So I can imagine, and thank you for all the different anecdotes for what you've taken away from that. Was there a country that you could remember, Kasha, where like I know you talked about humility, but was there a country that you felt like you had a good handle on, and then when you got in there, you were like, this is very different than what I originally anticipated. So did you have an experience like that?
I mean, I think every place you go into is going to be different than the way you've been, especially when you're going into places like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sudan, South Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just yeah, I mean, even Sudan in itself, the north is very different from the south, and
Mm.
tribalism is a big thing,
Okay.
and understanding those nuances. Um, I think a big thing when early on in my travels, when I started going into these places, was uh, racism
Mm.
and the kind of ethnic clashes
Yeah.
and how different that looks everywhere you go. And what it really taught me is how careful we have to be when we start to lump people together or use terms like they,
Mm-hmm.
those people. And it's I don't want to get too political, but it's
Mm-hmm.
even in the context of our country now, where we
Yeah.
get very, very different points of views, but how do we maintain that we are together? We are in this
Yeah.
together. We are a people without continuing to fuel the polarization. I don't think that was ever God's plan
Hmm.
for us as his children. And I think that has been a big lesson for me going into places and seeing how at the end of the day, we all just want to be seen
Mm.
and we want
It's
to
good.
be heard and we want to know that we matter. Going into an IDP camp and sitting with women who just want to tell you their stories.
Mm. Wow. That that is powerful in many ways. So Kasha, what would you say? You gave the professional background. You talked about the different shifts and work and the trends and even what happened in government. Now you're coaching. Did you ever get a sense, and maybe it was because, like many people, they don't know what coaching is, and then you realize what coaching is, and it's like, oh my God. But did you get a sense years ago of when you first learned what coaching was, like, huh, I think I think I can use that. Was there a light bulb that went off for you, or did you just more find yourself in those circles and say, okay, you know what? I think this is a direction God is taking me. Let me lean into the certifications and asking powerful questions. Uh, did you ever get a sense though, light bulb moment like, yes, coaching?
Yeah. So I guess let me take a step back and kind of give you my definition of coaching
Hmm.
because I think it's coaching. So there's like therapy, and the way I think
Hmm.
therapy is the looking in the rearview mirror and
Yeah.
what are the things that have shaped me from my childhood, from my past, from experiences that inform how I show up today.
Hmm.
And coaching is it's the closing of the insight action gap.
Mm.
So the insight action gap is you read all the books, you listen to
Hmm.
all the podcasts, you do all the things, and you have grown in self-awareness and you've done all the therapy, and yet something's not translating. And for
Mm.
me, and I'll share more about me and my story as we talk, but for me, what was very powerful was coaching was having someone in my corner where when it's very forward looking, it's what are my goals and what are my values and the actions that are coming out of those values, how do those support the goals? And
Yeah.
the coach is the person that is in your corner that provides the bumpers. Like if you think of bowling, right? They provide the bumpers for you to ensure that those actions and those values actually get you to those goals.
Mm.
And it's just leading you on that. It's not even leading, it's partnering with you on
Hmm.
that journey. And for me, my first experience with a coach was so powerful because I was like, first of all, I realized I do this. I do this all because my experience in international development was in monitoring, learning, and evaluation. And what that really is what I described. It's you're leading people through strategy. You're facilitating a process where people have an end goal and you're trying to get them to articulate how do you want to get there? How will you know you're on track? And what are the ways? How are you measuring progress towards that? And then through the facilitation, you're asking a lot of different questions of them so that they can have these aha moments of how they will do that.
Mm.
And I love those moments. I love when people have that realization of like, oh, I was thinking of doing it this way, but if I ask these questions, I manage things very differently.
Hmm.
And that shift that happens. And I remember when that happened for me, it happened in two powerful ways. The first was when I had my first executive coach,
Hmm.
and it was actually a very humble time in my career. It was my first real, like, next level leadership position, where I was supervising a lot of people. And up to that point, I was a leader because I got stuff done and I did things on my own.
Mm.
And here I was with a team, and it was like, and I had led groups in churches, right? Like, but the church
Hmm.
dynamic is different. In church, if
Right.
you're put in charge of like a family group or a small group, people kind of just out of respect will be like, yeah, you have this title, you have this position, God put you there. Yes, we're going to go along. That
Hmm.
doesn't happen in the workforce.
Not in the word. Oh, God put Kasha here. Let me listen to her. No, 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 no.
Learn, you need to learn how to build trust. You need to learn how to bring people along. And I needed to learn that. And
Mhm.
I was actually the company I was transitioning. The company that I was working for was a fairly large company. They were transitioning leadership. And the person who ended up being in leadership was not the person whose team I was on. And so I
Mhm.
already knew I was like on the hit list. But there were also things that it exposed about my leadership where, man, I'm not I haven't been effective.
Mm.
And through coaching, I started to learn honestly how to increase my emotional intelligence. And without increasing my emotional intelligence, I also couldn't like increase my spiritual depth. Like as we become more emotionally intelligent, we become our walk with God becomes deeper
Mhm.
and wider. And formation that happens in that process is next level. And
Mm.
so there was that part of my journey. And then there was the very personal, I've only been married for a year and a half. I'm 45. And I was single for a long time. And I found myself in 2019, literally January 2019, working with a relationship coach.
Mm.
And it changed my life. I probably would not be with the person I am with today if I hadn't had a relationship coach. And a few years into that journey, I became one because I was like, I really want to help single Christian women in their 30s and up create the love that they want. And I want to bust that whole happily ever after bubble. And it's not about being chosen and it's not about finding your Prince Charming, but it's about you get to create the relationship that you desire and want to have to God's glory. And I saw this theme in the coaching that I took part in, and the theme was self-trust. Like it was getting to a place where I could trust myself
Mm.
so that I could show up in the actual values I profess. Because if you spoke to me even a few years ago, I've been a Christian for 20 years. And I would have always said, I love God. I love serving God's people. There's nothing, clearly nothing I won't do and nowhere I will not go. But if you looked at my life and my day-to-day decisions, I was still trying to earn God's love. And I was
Mm.
still trying to earn love from people.
Wow.
I had become a Christian, but then after I became a Christian, I just became a Christian controlling perfectionist. Right? And so coaching helped me to come to realizations around what story am I telling myself, and does that story align with the values I profess?
Mhm.
And am I showing up in ways that align with how I want? Because when my why aligns with Jesus's why, I
Mm.
love who I am and I don't question my decisions and I am proud of the choices I make.
Mm.
But when that
Um,
alignment isn't there, that's when we go from being to striving.
oh yeah.
And the striving is like, how do I get to what needs to happen next? Oh, it's literally this. It's going from this, right, to this.
Hmm. That's good. That's like John chapter 15. Abide in me. That's good. That's good.
and less of
Wow.
me and more of you, right?
Yes, absolutely. On a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis even. Wow. Uh, Kasha, you mentioned that was one turning point for sure. Well, is there any other big like God turning point that really shaped you for today in 2025? Obviously, you mentioned there's a lot going on politically, relationally, racially, and I know I've had a lot of conversations with people over the coming months this year, and two words keep coming up. They're kind of different sides of the same coin. I keep grit and resilience. They keep coming back because I mean, Kasha, no, none of us could have predicted what's happening in our country, let alone the globe. And people are asking questions. People are nervous. People are scared, and yet God is always positions people. And so this is a time where not leaning on ourselves, but what comes to mind for you in your life, and maybe there's a turning point for you where you can see how, you know what, that I didn't really like that too much, but it prepared me for today when you hear the terms grit and resilience.
Yeah. Whew, loaded question. So let me share a little bit about my story.
Mhm.
So my family immigrated from Poland to New York City when I was 5. And I pretty much was raised by my grandmother and my mom. My dad ended up immigrating to another place. My parents were divorced at one. But I grew up in a very rough environment, family wise. There was a point where my grandmother has a lovely story, or had a lovely story. She's no longer with us, but and I wear these scarves because these are all hers, and like it's a part of her with me. So when I go to different events, or I just wear these. So to kind of embody who she was. But
Mhm.
she was a firecracker of a woman who fell in love with what she will say her true love in her at 63, and she moved to the UK. I was still very young, and my mom was just she had an amazing heart. She just wasn't built for being a mom. And there were
Mhm.
things that it's the generational curses. There were things that she was not equipped for. Um, and I had a very rough childhood growing up in New York City. And there were things that were fairly scary in my household. And there's a lot of violence. Thank goodness none of it was directed at me. I kind of managed to move around and through it. There was a lot of emotional um, and kind of psychological abuse. It just wasn't a safe place. And so when I was 16, I moved out on my own. So I moved out on my own at 16, and I very quickly learned how to create community that feels like family
Mhm.
around me. I became a Christian at 17, and that community really showed me this is what healthy love looks like. This is what forgiveness looks like. This is what it looks like to be in relationships with people who are very different than you, who may not think like you, may not sound like you. Uh, to give you an idea, I grew up in the inner city. So there were some friends that were in gangs. There were some friends that were absolutely nowhere near that, right? There were people of all different backgrounds. And when I got to college, I was the only white girl at the all black lunch, like dinner table, lunch table, whatever you
Mhm.
want to call it. And the challenge I actually got from my women's ministry leader was like, try becoming friends with other people that have a different experience than you. Uh, and And I learned so much through those different experiences that shaped me. But I think with my walk with God, the pivotal moments for me were kind of moving out on my own,
Mhm.
of course, becoming a Christian. That was
Mhm.
huge. Uh,
Mm.
becoming a Christian in community with people who were living out discipleship, who
Mm.
walked with me and taught me how to live out discipleship. People who were willing to tell me the truth and expose my blind spots.
Mm.
And those were huge moments. And the next kind of what I call my Job era, so to speak, was I had been in a relationship in my early 30s that I thought would lead to marriage. And when that ended, that really rocked my world and rocked my faith. Because my prayer before that was, the first person I date, God, I pray that they're my husband, and I feel like there's a lot of women that may pray that. And when that did not happen, I was devastated.
Mm.
Um, and I think that was a point in time where I realized that little girl inside of me, she was still very much alive, and I hadn't surrendered her fully to God. I was still protected.
Mm.
And as a result of that, um, there were choices I made that were just hurtful to at the time the person that I loved the most. And if you would have talked to at that time the person I was with, they would have said things like, Kasha, you don't know how to apologize. You
Mm.
say, I'm sorry, but, or here's why I did XYZ. And he would have said, there are times where I feel like I don't know what version of you I'm going to get. If I'm going to get the like happy, loving version, or if I'm going to get like the really angry and distraught version, right? There was
Mm.
just a lot of things that in that relationship, I got to see a mirror, and I was like, wow, this isn't who I want to be. And as I went through a very real and very heartbreaking breakup that I thought would literally break me. Like emotionally, I was like, this feels like I'm gonna die. But I was
Mm.
like, okay, if this hasn't destroyed me, then God, what else, what can I actually withhold from you when
Yeah.
like there's nothing left to hold back. It's just might as well just give you everything.
Yeah.
And I remember an incredible mentor who said, she gave me a challenge. She said, Kasha, there are some things that are your blind spots. And a powerful exercise for you would be to go to the people that know you, like really know you. Talk to your roommate, talk maybe to some trusted colleagues, talk to your best friends, people who are like your family, and ask them to be honest with you. Tell them that you know this conversation will be hard and difficult, but you really desire to know what your blind spots are and
Mm.
give permission to speak into it.
Mm.
And when I had those conversations, that was a huge shift
Wow.
because I got to, because one, I was ready. I was
Mm-hmm.
ready to hear it. And two, I wanted to grow and change.
Mm.
I didn't want to stay the same. That was a huge thing for me. And that next milestone was that Job phase where I was working for a refugee placement organization, and um, my position and like 30 others were eliminated. It was the first Trump administration.
Okay.
So within 3 days, I lost my grandmother who was
Wow.
overseas at the time. They lost her body. There was a whole
Oh.
lot of things happening. I lost my job, and the person I was living with at the time, who had just signed a lease, was like, "This isn't working for me. I'm just gonna move out." And so I was like, "Ooh, well, I lost my grandmother, the person that was most like a mother to me. I lost my job, and was about to lose where I was living
Mm.
in a matter of days." And I remember that was such a crisis of faith for me. And I remember it's what helped me to redefine the borders of what I see as community in my village. Because
Mm-hmm.
up to that point, I would have said it's just my church community because I was so engaged and I was so involved. But at that time, what ended up happening, and Jesus can totally relate to this on me, is the people that I thought were going to be there weren't.
Mm-hmm.
The people that I had called on and depended on weren't able to be there. And the people that started showing up for me were people in my CrossFit community. They were the
Mm.
ones that were like, because the people at church were like, I'll pray for you, it'll all work out. And that's great and good, but I didn't need that. What I got from my CrossFit community was the friend that said, you can come live with me
Wow.
and we'll figure out rent. We'll figure it all out. You can come stay with me. You will not be homeless. And another friend called and she was like, man, your grandmother just passed away. Just come over. We're having some people over. Just come spend time. You shouldn't be alone.
Mm.
And moments like that, send me your resume. I'll send it out. We'll figure it out. And I realized God doesn't just use believers, He uses everyone.
Mm.
He did it for Elijah and He was doing it for me. And that was the next kind of big pivotal moment for me in my faith. And I think if it hadn't been for those things, the kind of, okay, you can't earn your way and things aren't going to look like the way you think they should, like you're supposed to, be really
Mm-hmm.
clear why, but be open to the how and the what.
Mm. So good.
That changes everything. Those things set me up then for all the other things, right? For the coaching, for
Mm-hmm.
how I build and teach others how to build their village and their community,
Mm-hmm.
how I help organizations to build culture, all of it, all of it.
Wow. Kasha, one, thank you for your vulnerability and transparency. Because I know that at throughout your lifetime, I know you had to build up to the point to where you could share that, having been through some things myself. So one, I do not take that lightly. Number two, everyone, as you're listening, do you hear how God has fashioned her as a coach? Ladies, I'm looking right at you, ladies. Kasha has been built for this. She can look you eye to eye and say, where are you currently at and where are you trying to go? I've also been some places and God has given me some gifts and insight, and I'm here to walk alongside you. We're also going to talk about blind spots and things that you may have to let go. And so, folks, just hearing Kasha's story and what she's been through, I'm telling you, she's a coach. And I always think about Esther here, Kasha, when Mordecai asked the rhetorical question for who knows if you're called for a time such as this. I know even just from talking to Kasha offline, she's built for this. So, ladies, if you're looking for a coach, I am telling you, the trusted edge, and I love that name of the business, Kasha, the trusted edge. So, where can people learn more about you, Kasha, on the website, social media? Where can they go to find out more?
Yeah, so I'm Strong Girl for Life on Instagram, all lowercase, just as it's spelled, Strong Girl for Life on Instagram. I am Kasia, Kasia, Polish spelling, at thetrustededge.com. And I'm Kasia Kedzia Hatcher on LinkedIn.
I love it.
Yeah, and thetrustededge.com is the website, all lowercase altogether, thetrustededge.com. And the name was born out of when we trust ourselves, and
Hmm.
really we trust ourselves when we trust God, right?
Yeah.
But trust in God takes years and there's layers, right? When we can get to a place where we trust ourselves, and what that means is where your why aligns with your values, your why aligns with Jesus's why, that's where you can trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, then you can build communities of trust. Then you can build organizations of trust. Because I was part of communities before I trusted myself that weren't healthy, where I was still striving. I was still trying to prove my worth or earn my worth. And some of those communities were even church communities. I did a lot. I worked more people work harder, like do more, serve more. And I remember having this feeling like it was all to keep myself from feeling like I was invisible,
Mm,
or to feel like, well, I got myself here. I think there are a lot of women out there where if they look at their success, you did it on your own and you
mm,
went through some hard stuff and you did it on your own. And now you're probably hitting a place. If you're coming to see me, you're hitting a place and you're recognizing I can't do it on my own anymore. What
mm,
got me here isn't working anymore. And I want the skills to build my village. I want to ask people what my blind spots are, and I
mm,
want to learn how to bring people along, or I want to learn how to take my business from where it is to the next level because it's growing, but I'm still the main person running everything even though I have all this staff and all these people. The big important things, they still rest with me, right?
mm,
Or I have that next level position, but why aren't these people listening to me? Right? And I've been there and my clients have been there.
mhm,
I do have testimonials on my website, and I that is what I feel like my biggest passion around coaching is. It's not for the elite.
mm,
Coaching is not for the elite. And I saw someone I follow on LinkedIn actually said that they're like, I learned, I used to think coaching was for the elite until I got a coach, and then, it's what gets you elite. And I'm like, I don't buy into that last part. I do buy into it is not for the elite. And I
mm,
think especially in this time, in this economy where there is so much scarcity, so much polarization, so much fear, there are so many women leaders that are incredible, that could literally move planets. There are so many women stepping out of the federal government space looking for work and
mm,
feeling like, what is this going to look like? And I feel like it shouldn't be a privilege to be able to show up in your values and lead from your values. It should just, everyone should have access to that. And
mm,
that's my passion is I want every woman to be able to kind of stand in her inner power, inner authority. And what that really is to stand in God's spirit, to fully stand in God's spirit and who she is and how she's been created in being and not striving. And whether that's in a leadership position or in her love life, right? Like that's the other part of this is like you can have that relationship. It's not
mhm.
too late. You're not too old. You're not whatever your dot 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 is, right? I often tell people like don't should on yourself. Well, I
That's
should
good.
this,
It's
right?
good.
Stop shoulding, right? I was the biggest shoulder, right? But again, it's like if you're clear on your why, but open to your how and your what, man, God can do some incredible things. Those
Mm,
cisterns, right? The empty cisterns. I mean, oh my gosh, that passage in Jeremiah
yeah.
where the people literally, God's abundance was with them, but they just didn't see it. I
Mm,
remember that convicted me so much to the point where anytime I'm in a position where I feel like there's scarcity and lack, I stop and remind myself, my God, our God is a God of abundance.
Hmm.
That means if I am feeling scarcity, it's not, He is not withholding. There's something in my perspective that's limited. I am not seeing His abundance because of there's something I am blocking,
It's
but His
good.
abundance is always there,
Mm.
right? And that's there's such power, and it convicts me every time. I'm like, okay, just be. Like what is in front of me? Gratitude, right? Like, okay, how do I show up in these ways to
So
see
good.
that abundance again?
So good. So, Kasha, basically, you just read a lot of people's mail. Like probably described 4 or 5 different type of women that are like, oh, I think she might have been talking about me. So if you feel that in your gut, you probably need to reach out, and we'll have Kasha's information in the show notes. So you need to go back and re-listen to the episode. So that was one. And second, Kasha, you're just so encouraging. And when you talk to her, folks, you feel that. The very first time I met her, when people say you feel me, she doesn't even have to say that. When you walk away from her, you felt
Mm.
her. And God has just given her that unique ability. Kasha, before we go, because folks, now you're understanding why I said in advance that she had to come back. You should know by now why I said that. So she'll be back like the Avengers movies. She'll return for part two. But Kasha, what are you excited about? We're in the kind of the twilight of 2025, and a lot of people are already starting to make 2026 plans and goals and milestones. But what are you excited about as we close the year and as we look forward into 2026?
Yeah, I think gratitude is so important for me, especially.
Hmm.
I think there have been some really hard things this year that we
Yeah.
have all experienced, and individually and as a people. And I know that there are a lot of people that are like, I just want this to be over.
Hmm.
And people who want to claim the next year and for me, what I am excited about is sitting, getting still and silent with God and listening to what are the lessons to bring into the next year.
Mm.
And for me, every year I choose a word or a theme. Usually it's a
Hmm.
word for the theme. And then there's a scripture associated with that. And I walk the year with that. Now be careful what you choose, because usually that's the thing that's like, God's like, oh, that's what you want to work on.
Right.
Just to give you an idea, I mean, my theme for this year was slow down,
Mm.
just to pause, to slow down. And that was a challenge with everything happening. Uh, Losing my profession, moving across country, buying our first home, starting a business, all within a matter of a very short period of time, a few months, building my new village and community. Yeah, it's almost like inertia and working against it. And so I think as the year comes to a close, I hope everyone can take some time to slow down and reflect and just be present with God and mourn if you need to mourn. Make time and space to mourn. Celebrate. There's always things to celebrate. Celebrate. Like I love you were saying that you hit your episode marker milestone.
Hmm.
Did you blow off the cannon with the I mean,
Right.
it's so important how we my biggest thing is how you define success matters.
Hmm.
And your definition of success is reliant on other people or other circumstances. My encouragement is there a way for you to shift your definition of success that is within your sphere of control,
Mm.
with your manageable interests, so to speak, because that will help you to celebrate those steps of successes.
Mm.
And also, I am a huge, huge fan of holidays. And I am that person that I am so Christmas by far my favorite. And I am so excited for the twinkly lights and the hot cocoa and the times of connection with family and friends over meals. I love bringing people from my different walks of life together. So I do a cookie exchange and I host that. I'm so excited to host that here and just bring the different people in my life together to meet. And you know this, it's like when people would have never met, but you get to connect them and you're like, you have to meet this person, right? And then like they become friends and they start hanging,
Yeah.
even if it's without you, you're like, yes, this is amazing.
Yeah.
The holidays are that for me. There's such a great opportunity to do that. And to, as we reconnect, of course, like watching The Chosen, right? But like the real meaning
Hmm.
of Christmas and how we get to celebrate in community, but how we get to draw people in.
Mm.
Because I think holidays can be, and for many years for me, can be such a lonely time.
Mm.
And so there's also an opportunity to not make it that for people.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are all my kind of things.
My goodness, folks, slow down,
Mhm.
have gratitude,
Mm.
appreciate the holidays, and eat some cookies. That's what I gathered. I
All
love that.
with friends.
Yes, with friends, specifically with
Yeah.
friends. You could always eat cookies by yourself, but cookies are better when you eat them with people.
Yes.
That's for sure. Well, folks, we have to have Kasha back for a part two. Because I said this earlier, there's just not enough time. And once again, I look at her and I'm smiling and it's a conversation and I know everybody listening was like, wow, that was so good. I know, which is why we're gonna do it again in the future. So Kasha will return. We'll work out the dates and whatnot. But Kasha, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us here on the Fortified Life podcast. So much fun, so insightful, so transparent. Can't wait for you to come back.
Thank you. Thank you so much for who you are and for creating this space. It is invaluable, and I'm so inspired by you and honored to be here. Thank you, Jason.
You are more than welcome. Well, folks, this is what God allows us to do here on the Fortified Life. And that's all we have time for today. But make sure you tune in every week, live stream 8:30 p.m. Or on demand on your platform of choice, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, our YouTube channel where you can physically see us. You can see us, those who are watching on YouTube. So at the Fortified Life. But definitely share what God is doing. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We'll have all of Kasha's information in the show notes. Trust me, you will know how to reach out to her. Well, folks, that's all we have time for here on the Fortified Life today. Remember, you know how we end things. Don't compartmentalize your faith in the marketplace. And from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.